Welcome, welcome. Hey, John, I see you in chat already. I was going to answer back, but you put in the chat about, I don't know, 3 seconds before we went live. So, welcome to another edition of Ogma's Oratory, and hopefully you can hear me. Let me do one thing here. All right, there we go. That way you can hear Rebekah. Hi, Rebekah.
Hi, everybody.
Now we'll wait for the we've got like a 30-second delay on the stream. Hey, John, you're out there. Can you hear both of us? I'm going to assume you can, unless you say otherwise. And you're actually probably just now seeing it. So let's see here. I guess I could just go ahead and. Okay, there we go. So you can hear me. That's good. All right. So tonight's conversation is about the pentagram, and we've both been doing some research on this. It's a very deep subject. It's much deeper than most people think.
It's very, very deep, and it's also very personal.
Okay, how so?
Well, for everybody, they have different ways that they like to wear the pentagram. Some people like to wear it with a point up. Some people like to wear it with a point down. And everybody has a different reason for doing that. There is no one end-all reason for wearing it any one particular way. Everybody has a different reason why they like to wear it a certain way.
Hence why the pentagram behind me is upright, and the one behind you is upside down. Or actually, the 5 behind you are upside down. Because
Correct.
You're one of those who wears it inverted. Do you want to go into why?
Well, for me personally, the reason why I wear it inverted is because I see it as a symbol of bringing energy down into me. Originally, when I wore the pentagram, it was with the point up, and it was because I was giving myself up into the world, into the universe, the energy, and exploring, what it could do, how the world was affected when I put myself out there. I later turned it over and began wearing it inverted when I decided that I was ready to move on and I was ready to start taking some of that energy and using it and pushing it out into the universe. So for me, the inverted pentagram is taking all of that energy from all of the different elements, from the universe, from whatever is around me, pulling it down into me and then stretching out and moving things.
So kind of like the 2 points up are a funnel that that funnels the energy into you.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So let's see if we can't get into a little bit of history here, because most people assume that the pentagram is an ancient symbol, and they are correct. It is. Unfortunately, most people also seem to think that it is an ancient symbol of evil, and that is incorrect.
That's right. That was only originally brought about by Levi, I believe, who was the first one to write about it being an evil symbol when it was inverted.
Levi, really?
Yes, I believe it was Levi.
Okay, that's interesting. I was unaware of that. I now you're talking about Levi, the ceremonial magician.
Hang on. Let me find
Elias Levi.
Some of my stuff up.
Because I know that the pentagram is used in ceremonial magic, so I'm kind of curious about that one. But what we can do real quick is we can go back to its history. Yes.
Here it is. I want to say his name is Eliphas.
Yeah,
Eliphas.
Eliphas. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
He said that a reversed pentagram was a symbol of evil.
Oh, okay, so the inverted pentagram.
Yes.
Okay.
That was when the pentagram first became an evil thing. Is when Levi first said, "If you flip it over, it's evil."
Interesting.
That was the first instance that I can find.
All right, so let's go into some history real quick, because I've got some really cool stuff to show. All right, so we both did some research, because while we are familiar with the pentagram, there's so much to learn. You don't always remember it all. One of the things I found was that the pentagram is as old as 35,000 or 3,500 BCE, before Common Era. And if you look to screen right, you'll see some cuneiform tablets. We're talking, this is the same era of time. And I'm gonna apologize for the video because it is raw footage that I shot at the Vatican Museum in Rome, so it's not been edited. You're gonna see some interesting shots here, but cuneiform is the oldest form of writing that we are aware of at this point. It was it was created by the Sumers, and in fact, there's a picture of one of the Sumerian gods who I think I want to say that's the one who created the writing, but. So the pentagram is as old as cuneiform as a form of writing. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I believe. Let's see. If I'm looking at this correctly, it's served for the word ub or ub, meaning corner, angle, nook, small room, cavity, hole, pitfall. Which later gave rise to its cuneiform sign, and then was reduced to only 4 points, like a square, in Assyrian cuneiform.
It's interesting because, and I've got some pages up here for reference. And what it says here is that in the Sumerian dictionary of glyphs, the points of the pentagram were orientations: forward, back, left, right, and above. Astrological implications were used to depict Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, and Venus. Venus is something that we're going to get into later. That's something that I want you to remember. Past the Sumerians, we get into the ancient Greeks. And the ancient Greeks, the Pythagoreans used the pentagram to symbolize the 5 elements. And their elements were idea, heat, air, earth, and water, which actually correspond to the modern elements of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. If you think of idea as spirit and heat as fire.
In Eastern culture, instead of using spirit, they use metal, but...
Correct. Well, and that's the other thing that I noticed, that I found out, was that I want to say, and I'm going to have to look it up. I believe Pythagoras did some traveling into India, and also disseminated his ideas there. And so you get a lot of Hindu associations with the pentagram as well. Hebrew tradition.
Actually, the pentagram is all around the world.
Yes.
We've actually seen it recently appear on flags in Morocco and Ethiopia.
Correct. Yes, it is a universal symbol, and an ancient universal symbol. The Hebrew tradition, pentagram is ascribed to the truth, and you've probably heard that if you take an apple, and I don't have an apple with me, if you take an apple and you slice it through the equator, if you do it properly, the seeds are where the 5 points of a pentagram would be. And real quickly, I want to go into, let me see if I can get my insert properly done here. There are, let's see here, and then I forgot what I was going to say. The seeds of an apple, 5 points of a pentagram. And I don't remember what I was going to say. Never mind. It wasn't important. It
happens sometimes.
It wasn't important. Well, this is where having a second person to actually run this stuff while I talk would be useful. Because I could just start talking and didn't let them decide, okay, where are we going to put this up?
But then they're going to want a timeline so they know what to put up.
Yeah. This is very much off the cuff, and we all know that. Let's see. Pentagram, let's see here. So the saying an apple a day keeps the doctor away originates from the belief that the apple is symbolic of health, only because if you cut it through the equator, the seeds form the 5 points of the star.
The Pythagoreans actually used to recognize each other with that symbol because they knew it as a symbol of health.
Okay. let's see here. The pentagram. Oh, I know what I was going to look. I know what I wanted to see. Because there is a large question of the difference between a pentagram and a pentacle. Let me see if I pulled up a whole bunch of images. So let me see if I can find the one I'm looking for. Because yes.
When I did my research, when I looked up the word pentacle versus the word pentagram, the pentagram was the star itself. The pentacle was any disc-shaped object that portrayed any kind of a symbol on it. That was what pentacle's definition was.
And that is what I found as well. And of course, I don't see anything in here. So I don't think I've got a shit ton of images, and I don't think that was one of them that I pulled up. But that's okay. So yes, the pentagram is the actual star. Pentacle, an onion a day also keeps the doctor away. Well, that could be said of garlic as well. At least if you're eating garlic and you say it'll keep the doctor away.
It'll keep everybody away.
I'm reading chat and John's being his usual self. So yes, the pentagram is the actual star. Pentacle is the star within the circle. Let's see here. Pentagram was a symbol of fortune. Has been found in Egyptian statues and Gaulish coins, which also makes sense because we use it today as one of the suits of the tarot, the pentacles suit, and pentacles typically in tarot mean material, physical, something physical. If you know, the Ace of Pentacles means a physical change or physical something new, physical, or it can also mean money. It can mean fortunes. Hey, Cassandra. Let's see here. It's our understanding the pentacle as having a circle around the star versus none being a pentagram. That's correct. Yes.
There's also something else that goes into that. There's a modern belief that if you're wearing the pentagram without the circle around it, it means that you're much more open to putting it out there. You're very sharp. You're very
points
out in the world about it. And if you have the circle around it, it means more of, being introverted about it and more close to yourself about it. It also means that you're doing like a path of connection between all of the 5 elements in yourself. So there's competing theories as to why the circle is there versus why the circle is not there.
I'm kind of curious what that would.
It's a more recent thing.
I'm kind of curious what that would mean for me because not only is my pentagram in a circle, but it's got a stag's head on top of it, so it's well hidden. Most people never even see the pentagram; they see the stag's head. Oh, what a cool necklace you have of a deer head. Where did you find that?
Mine upstairs has a giant Baphomet on it.
Well,
obvious.
In fact, and I've got several images of that too. Medieval Ptolemaic text used the pentagram, and it was also used in Arabic magic circles. It was also used in later on in medieval times. It was used in churches, as Cassandra pointed out. She says that there's many East Coast church with stained glass windows, and I've got a couple of images of that as well. And we'll get into that. We're kind of going through some basic history at this point.
Well, the reason why the pentagram was so prominent in churches at the time was because it represented the 5 wounds of Christ.
That's correct. And as Cassandra points out, it's another adaptation of paganism.
Exactly.
The pagans were using it, and the Christians tended to take symbology that the pagans were familiar with so that the pagans could continue to use it. Not that the Christians cared if the pagans used it or not, but because they didn't want to give it up. The Christians tended to co-opt it, so it became the 5 wounds of Christ, the 5 joys of Mary, the 5 for knights. It was the 5
the 5 virtues of
knighthood. In fact, let's see here. In the poem of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, it says, "It is a symbol which Solomon conceived once to betoken holy truth by its intrinsic right. For it is a figure which has 5 points, and each line overlaps and is locked with another, and it is endless everywhere, and the English call it, in all the land, I hear, the endless knot," which kind of actually really does describe a pentagram very well. We also found a bunch of stuff on the pentagram that is, I think, a little more esoteric and less well known, which we're going to get to. So,
well, John Connolly brings one up. He says, "I think Leonardo's drawing of man within the pentagram also affected how people view its use." And if you look at the way that Leonardo drew it inside of the pentagram, and I believe you have a picture of it, Greyheart, if you want to put it up.
Do. Let me see if I can find it.
It shows man inside the pentagram with the head at the top point, and then 2 arms out, and then the 2 feet out. And then if you go inside of that circle and create a perfect cross, the very center is the genitals.
Let's see here. Whoops. So yeah, now that I've got it up, could you say that again?
I said that if you look at it, you'll see man's head at the very top. You'll see his arms outstretched to the first 2 points, his feet outstretched to the next 2 points. And if you put a cross in the center of it, you'll see it goes directly onto his genitals.
Right, and we've got that up so you can see it, and exactly that is, and I will tell you that I've seen pagans actually, in ritual, when we call quarters, traditionally we do a pentagram. We form a pentagram as we call it. I've actually seen. I actually have an ex who, one of the ways she would do it is she would go from the forehead down, across, up, across, down, up, and back up. And it looked very much like someone crossing themselves, but it was a very elaborate crossing. And so, if you were in a place or with people who you couldn't just, do a pentagram in the air, you could do it that way, and it looked like obviously it was some sort of religious talisman, but it was less obvious what you were doing. You might get some Catholics asking you what kind of crossing yourself was that, but for the most part, it tended to be a lot less obvious as far as the average person. We also found, one of the reasons that Leonardo used it, and I'm going to go over here and pull myself on the camera real quick because I want to look for if I can find it. We found some information. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and get rid of that. No, that's not what I wanted. We found some information.
That's my door.
I was going to say, that sounds like somebody knocking.
Yeah, I've already told everybody that I'm on my webcam and they can't bother me, so.
Let's see here if I can find it. There were some interesting stuff that I found about. There we are. Is this what I'm looking for? Yes, sacred geometry. And so what you find that picture is a little hard to see. So let me see if I can pull it up full screen. The sacred geometry is. Let's see here. Let me go get down here. And once I find it in my list of like hundreds of pictures, you'll see that there it is. You'll see that there we go. It is an actual pentagram within a pentagon. And the circles, the spirals that you associate with sacred geometry, the sacred ratio, and they work out they work out perfectly. Okay.
Yeah, they are an exact match to the golden ratio.
Right.
The other thing that you'll see is if you just have the pentagram itself inside of one of those spirals, it also fits perfectly.
Well, so right now I'm showing just the star and how the golden ratio works with the pentagram itself. And somewhere here, I know I have, here it is, what you were saying, which is how within the different triangles that golden ratio still works out, and
Yep.
how the basically the other thing is that they talk about the angles and how they work. So the flat triangle has a 72 degree angle and two 36 degree angles, and the 36 degree angle equals pi divided by 5 pi radians divided by 5. The 72 degree is 2 pi 5 radians, and then there's the 108 degree triangle, which is one of the small flat triangles as well, and it's 3 pi 5. So it goes pi 5, 2 pi 5, and 3 pi 5, which when you look at when you look at math and symbology and sacred symbology and all that, that tends to be very what's the word I'm looking for? Significant. This is not the right word, but it is. It's very significant, because those of us who tend to believe in a higher power don't believe in coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence. There is,
Well,
go ahead.
is speaking on the term of not being a coincidence. I mean, if you look, there are we have 5 fingers on each limb. We have
Yeah.
5 toes on our feet. We have
Yes.
5 senses. We have 5 stages of our lives. You know, there's birth, adolescence, sexual maturity, parenthood, and death. There are so many 5s that are around us. I mean, even the medieval knights, they had generosity, courtesy, chastity, chivalry, and piety as their 5 virtues. The Wiccan kiss is 5-fold. So there's the feet, the knees, the womb, the breast, the lips. Blessed be. It's also a prime number. So I mean, 5 is all around us, and it's such an important number, and it's everywhere, and most people miss that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I have discovered that we humans tend to place significance on a lot of things, and 5 is just like 3, 7, and 9. It's one of those sacred numbers, depending on what tradition you follow and what your beliefs are. 5 is an extremely sacred number. We've got 3, which is the power of 3. We've got 9, which is 3 squared. Cubed, and so is it squared or cubed? I was never any good at math.
I think it's 3 squared is
3
9.
squared, yeah.
3 cubed is 27, I think.
Right. So 3 squared is 9. Those are both sacred numbers, have sacred significance. 5 also has sacred significance. As part of it is because, as you said, we have 5 digits on our hands, we have 5 toes on our feet, 5 senses, all of that stuff, and a lot of times, what we find is that either creates a roadmap or reinforces the spiritual theories, if you will, of how how the universe works. There are certain designs, I guess you could say, that have a spiritual truth to them, and the pentagram is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how it perfectly matches that golden ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Christians look at things with a golden ratio as being spiritually significant. You can't deny that there's something there.
Well, I mean, even within the pentagram itself, okay, you've got 5 points drawn with 5 lines that use 5 acute angles and 5 obtuse angles. I mean, 5 is all about this symbol.
The power of 5. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let me go. There we go. So you know, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about where this pentagram went to and how it got there. We know that it was used within the Christian church. Let me go ahead and pull up some images here that I have. There we are. Let's see here. That will work. So, all right, above your head is going to appear, there we go, a couple of windows. These are actually a church in London. And the pentagram right there built into the stonework. Okay. Now, a lot of people would look at this and go, wait, how does that work? Why is there why would a church have a pentagram? And it's interesting. I was actually watching some stuff that it was on one of those history things. They were talking about the Knights Templar, and they talked about how they were talking about the Templar Church in France, a small town in France, and they were showing they were showing outside views, and they weren't saying anything about the particular view. They were just showing this church. But the first thing I noticed about it was that right over right at the apex, like the picture on the right, was this window, and it was a pentagram. And they talked about the fact that the Templars also used this. They used it as the 5 wounds of Christ. Now, unfortunately for the Templars, that symbol, they were around about the time that symbol became associated with evil, because in their downfall, what happened was that they had the King of France, as you may or may not know, 1311, Friday the 13th, 1311, in the year 1311, had the Templars arrested for heresy. And so he had a bunch of them in prison, in their own prison actually. And as the story goes, they were talking about how how were they going to take what had been the Pope's favorite group of priests and make them something vile and evil. And so what they did was they actually made it. They perpetrated a story upon where the Templars, who were a secret society, confessed to their initiation rituals, whereupon they were required upon initiation to spit on the cross. And there was, at some point, they elaborated to where there was they talked about how a head, just the head of a man was put on a platter which had a pentagram on it, and they were as part of this initiation ritual, they were supposed to swear fealty to this head. Later on, that human head became the head of Baphomet, which you may recognize, because Baphomet is in modern society, the average person's modern society, absolutely recognized as a satanic symbol. Goat, head of a goat, body of a woman, or at least the breasts of a woman, and and so this very anthropomorphized, almost Egyptian kind of god being that Baphomet is, confuses Christians no end, and so they of course decided it must be evil. But you see a lot of times, as you can see on the screen now, that now the symbol of the goat head taking up the pentagram within the double circle. Everybody looks at that, and that's obviously a satanic symbol.
Well, if I'm not correct, that one actually is Church of Satan's property.
That one
However,
probably
that
is.
is not always associated with Satanists themselves. Other people who use Baphomet in their work are not necessarily Satanists.
Correct.
The other thing I want to do is touch upon some of the questions that are in here. Cassandra writes, it looked more like it crossed at the Tippereth or his center. I believe that's talking about Leonardo's drawing.
Yes.
Can you bring up Leonardo's drawing one more time,
Yeah,
please?
hang on. Let me go ahead and pull it up. Let's see here.
If you look at Leonardo's drawing, there are two crossings there. One of them is below the other, and that is the exact center of the circle, and that crosses over his genitals.
All
And
right,
that's why I mentioned that.
All right, let me go ahead and pull up. All right, what happened? Did I not? I didn't hit it. Hang on a second. There it is. There it is. All right, so there we go. So yes, and with this drawing, what you see is basically the crosshairs of the circle. The center of the circle is at his genitals. The cross line, the top of the 2 points, left and right, do go across his abdomen, which is about.
But I was referring to the center of the circle when I mentioned that.
Right. Now,
that line that goes across his abdomen is the connecting line from the 2 topmost points.
Correct. And as you can see, this particular image is connected with the 5 elements as well: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, and shows them in their proper sequence.
Yep.
One of the things that I wanted to do is that I wanted to go into a little bit about. Let me go ahead and get this back. There we go. I wanted to talk a little bit about the symbology of the elements and how we look at those, because what we find is that, let me see here. I've got a whole bunch. There we go. When we're taught in our classes, let's see. Let me see here. Yes, and I'm actually going to get into that, John. John was just asking if we were going to have a discussion of how the pentagram is used in witchcraft on tonight's agenda, and that's exactly where I want to go. The pentagram, when it's used within, and let me pull up a large one. Let me go in here and get this all set up. When we use the pentagram in our, there it is, in our rituals, typically it has it is, each point is associated with a particular element. And this particular pentagram, I've got all the points colored properly with their corresponding elements. So air is yellow, fire is red, water is blue, earth is green, spirit being white. And that actually comes from some of the ceremonial magic roots that Gerald Gardner used. And he got that from both ceremonial magic, and I won't be surprised if it also had some Masonic roots. I did a lot of digging into Masonic and Eastern Star traditions as well, because they both use the pentagram as.
And for those that don't know, the Order of the Eastern Star is the female Masons.
Yes. Let me see if I can pull up. So we've got. Let me pull up. Let's see here. I gotta turn one off before I turn the other one on. So it's taking me a minute. So we have, for example, the Masonic symbol, which is, everybody knows, is the compass and the square. But behind that, you'll notice is a 5-pointed star. And if I pull up this one, there we go. That is the symbol of the Eastern Star, with Eastern Star being the female equivalent of the Masons, which I know a little bit about because my mother, aunt, and grandmother were all Eastern Star. My uncle is a Mason. So all of these groups use the pentagram as in their symbology of some sort. But I also noticed that one of the things I found, and let me see if I can pull this up, in the tradition of Eastern Star, they have several stations, which are offices within their group, named after biblical figures: Ruth, Esther, Electra, Martha, and Ada. Ada being the Bible. And five stations, 5 points. Now, do they add? Do the Masons actually use the pentagram? I don't know. I'm not a Mason. I do know that Masons and Eastern Star do commingled rites. I actually got invited to what they call an installation, which is not actually an initiation. It's a changing of their offices. The person steps down from office, the new person goes in, and I was amazed at how much of that ritual made sense to me because of my pagan knowledge. I was just awed by the fact that they pretty much cast circle. They called quarters. They had a whole bunch of stuff that was very, very, very familiar to me as a witch. So let's get back to what we were talking about with the pentagram and the 5 elements. And Rebekah, feel free to chime in here anywhere you want.
Well, I wanted to go back and answer one of John's questions. John put up there, to quibble, perhaps 5 classic senses, but we have several more than 5 in reality. Example, a sense of balance. And while that is absolutely true, if you keep in mind, we also thought there was originally only 5 planets until we learned that there were 8 plus Pluto, which is fourth planet, and a couple others. So, and
they're looking for a 9th, which is they think is 5 to 10 times the size of Earth. So there may still be 9.
Yeah.
But yes.
But as far as the elements in ritual, I understand that there are a couple of different people. A couple of different ways that it is taught. There are some people who believe, certain elements go with certain specific directions. The way that I was taught was as per your location. So where I am right now, I've got northern winds, which is air, southern seas, which is water, the western mountains, because I'm in Colorado, so that would be earth, and then the eastern sunrise, which would be fire. But I have also been warned that other people don't necessarily use that. So when I'm calling my corners, when I'm calling my pentagram, when I'm calling the pentacle, however you want to phrase it, I have to be careful about, where I am and who I'm around and what they've been taught, and be courteous about that.
Absolutely. One of the things I've got up right now is an image of the pentagram with the ceremonial magical alchemical symbols for earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, which I find I hadn't noticed this until recently. I was actually, oddly enough, it was on Facebook. There was a lady on there talking about how she saw the symbols and how she used them, and she was talking about how the symbols didn't make a pentagram, they made a Star of David. And I'm going, how do you get that? And she says, well, you use the alchemical symbols from ceremonial magic. And sure enough, let me see if I can get this here.
And also on the different ways that it's taught, if you look at the picture you just put up with the alchemical symbols and the picture that you had out previously, you'll notice they're all in different spots.
Correct.
So it really depends on who you learn from and where you are as to where exactly those elements are going to appear.
Correct. And let me do this. Let me see if I can turn this off, turn this on. So here we've got the alchemical symbols as they appear, and actually with the gray, it's a really good representation. Shows exactly how you get a Star of David out of all 4 of those elemental symbols.
Yep, I can see that.
Okay, and let's see here. So Cassandra says she has her grandmother's Eastern Star necklace. I've got my grandmother's ring. She was a traditional witch. The difference between Wicca and traditional witchcraft are that the pentacle in trad is used to lay a compass versus casting a circle. And I agree with that. She and I have both been in Julie's traditional witchcraft class, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. But we as witches get our elements, and I guess that's a proper way to put it. Our elements of our craft from a whole plethora of places. It's not something that was handed down for generations and generations and generations. And so most of this stuff comes to us from other sources, typically that Gardner found through his travels as he was studying magical systems. So John's saying that he thought the crossbarred upward triangle in alchemy represented fire, not air. Okay, and that's very possible. I will admit that I was putting stuff together today, so I was kind of in a hurry. So it's very possible that in fact, let's take a look here. Let me go in here. Let's see here. We've got that. Oops, that's bad. There we go. And let's see here. Let me see if I can find. I had it here a minute ago. Yeah, I hate when that happens. All of a sudden, half the problem is that these images that I'm looking at are so small, I can't see them. Oh well, all right, never mind.
And John, you're exactly right. He writes, I think the point of all of this is that nothing's standardized, and that is absolutely true. Yeah. Every person who follows a pagan path has something about their path that is not exactly the same as the person who came before them. Everybody is free and open to express their beliefs in a way that is personal and meaningful to them. So the fact that nothing is standardized really shows that personalization of one's own particular faith. You choose to believe that, the fire element should only be called in the West. I think that's great. I typically only call Earth there, but if that's the way that you believe it, I'm not going to put you down or shun you for that, because that's the way that you were brought up believing it. That's the way you were taught, and that's what works for you. And that's essentially what this all comes down to, is what works for you, what's correct for you, what's best for you. What part of you is expressed the best? What part of you is brought out and centralized as a result of your faith? What part of you affects the world in any kind of a manner, whether you choose it to be a positive effect or a negative effect? What part of that works for you to bring that out?
And something else that kind of goes along with that, and I guess it depends on how ceremonial you want to be. I was taught, that there is the general, generic, I guess is the proper term, generic calling of the quarters, where you just do a pentagram, standard pentagram. Mm-hmm. But also, in my learning, because I have known a whole bunch of ceremonial magicians, they showed me that there are other ways to do the pentagram. And in fact, so you have the air pentagram and the fire pentagram and the water pentagram, okay? And for that matter, you've got the spirit pentagram as well. Let's see here. But you also have the invoking and the banishing pentagram. And if you look at the invoking pentagram, and it may, and I will admit that what you saw me do a minute ago is going to be reversed to what you see on the screen, only because I'm looking at the camera. To me, that was this image shows the proper way to do it, where you start at the top and you go to the bottom left. You would have seen me do it to the bottom right because the way the camera works, but then you've got the banishing, which is from the lower left up and back and around, and that is different than most people do. So that you would do the invoking at the beginning when you were calling the corners, and you would do the banishing when you are closing circle. And so then you combine that with the various elemental pentagrams, and you get this. So you've got the spirit invoking and the spirit banishing, the fire invoking, the fire banishing, water invoking and banishing, air invoking and banishing, earth invoking and banishing. Now, this all tends to be very ceremonial, but if you ever see someone doing this in ritual, you can bet they have a pretty good knowledge of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not something that you would normally see, certainly not typically in a open ritual. This might be something that that is tradition for a particular coven.
Now, John says, to switch subjects a bit, usually callings are done at the ordinal points of the circle. Has anyone used the idea of using the triangles of the pentagram as chambers for callings? I haven't seen anything like that done, but there's no saying that you can't either. I mean, if you want to start with a particular element and then move your way around, or move in such a pattern that it would create that 5 points while you're doing it. I mean, I don't see any harm in experimenting with that and trying that out.
Yeah, again, I think that's going to be something that you would find in a particular tradition, if you find it at all.
Or you could start a new tradition.
Yeah, I suspect that that's probably going to be more ceremonial than witchcraft or Wicca. I wouldn't be surprised if in a more ceremonial magician, and I know very little about OTO and Golden Dawn. I've got some friends who belong to either or both, but I would not be surprised if something like that existed, because they sometimes, even more so than Wiccans and witches, tend to, they may not call it God and Goddess, but they call it spirit or higher self, and it is absolutely an equal to the other four elements that you find called in witchcraft. In witchcraft, it's you call all four elements and then you invoke deity, God and Goddess, whatever, and God and Goddess tends to be a lot more overview, much more encompassing than the four elements. Let's see. This idea is used more in Kabbalistic callings of demons. Probably, I know
that actually brings up a really good point.
Yeah.
If you're going to specifically use the elements to call corners, or you're going to call specific things in order of a pentagram, I will throw out a little bit of a warning out there. Be careful about what you call, because I've had different energy levels come from a calling based on what was called. If you've got somebody who's calling earth and gnomes and dwarves and all of the creatures of the earth realm, and then you have somebody who steps up for water and they're calling forth a kraken, you're going to have a huge imbalance in your energy level there, or you're going to have a very dominating water presence in your circle. So when you're calling your corners, my little thing that I usually throw out there is be careful what you call, and see if you can work out ahead of time what you're going to call and keep it balanced, because it helps to balance the energy in the circle as a whole.
And the other thing that I've noticed, the image that I've got the screen right is the sigil of Amenth, which was originally created, written down by Dee and Kelly. Dr. John Dee was, his unofficial title was Court Magician to Queen Elizabeth I. And what it purports to be is a hierarchy of angels in heaven. But and let me get the full screen size here, because it is at the very, there we go, at the very center of it. Yep, there we go. At the very center of it, you'll notice there is a pentagram, which seems really strange when you realize that Dr. Dee and all of these people who in Elizabethan times were very Christian, even if they did break from the Catholic Church, but they were very Christian. But this is also something used, I don't know about quite regularly, but it's taught and learned regularly as part of the lessons for ceremonial magic. It is it is used in ceremonial magic very much so, even today. A lot of this stuff comes from the mists of history, but that's one of those things that we have documentation about where it came from and who used it. Let's see here. So Cassandra's saying that she's agreeing with John. Traditional witchcraft does not have the ceremony of ceremonial magic, but the pentagram pentacle can have some powerful magic when used in ceremonial way for sure. And I absolutely agree. That's the whole point of the pentagram, is the symbolic power that it brings to your ritual.
And if you look up some of the rituals that are in, I want to say Aleister Crowley used them. Probably. They have the lesser ritual of the pentacle. They have the greater ritual of the pentacle, and these are all very, very streamlined things. They're very thought out. They're there's this step and then this step and then this step and this step. So you can alter those if it works better for you by altering them. But there are some dedicated rituals that are out there for the pentagram.
The one thing that I've learned about ceremonial magic is, and they call in some places you'll hear it called high magic, as opposed to witchcraft, which is, I suppose, low magic. The thing I've learned about ceremonial magic, or ceremonial magicians and ceremonial rituals, everything has a purpose. Every movement, there is a purpose, a forethought, and a reason for everything that they do. And I would certainly suggest that if you have the chance, at least once, go to a Golden Dawn Gnostic Mass ritual. Now, it's not for me. I've been to several. It's I'm the guy standing there going, "Are we done yet? Are we done yet? Are we done?" I find it. Well, the last time I went, which has probably been 10 years ago, I found it to be long, drawn out, and boring. But that's me. I think that everyone should go and witness and participate as best they're able to in such a ritual, because it is something that is so totally different yet very familiar to anyone who is learning witchcraft. And you will find a lot of very familiar symbols and ritual elements in it. But yes, the pentagram is absolutely a big part of at least what I've seen, and what little I've seen of ceremonial magic. It may not be as ingrained in ceremonial magic as it is in Wicca and witchcraft, as far as it's our main symbol. It's the symbol that we have taken as ours, as it is as the cross is to, or crucifix is to Christians, the pentagram is to witches.
That was mine.
Yeah, I know. Every time I hear something, I'm like, yes.
What? Sorry. One day I will remember to create a soundproof room for all of this.
Well, and I didn't remind you to turn your phone ringer off, did I?
Well, I also walked in about 10 minutes before we were about to go on air.
That's true. I was actually concerned that I was going to have to start the show without you and then have to figure out how to get you up and running while I was doing the show. So I'm really glad you got here before the show started.
To give everybody who's listening a little bit of background, the reason why I was only here 10 minutes to showtime versus my usual hour prior to showtime. My mother-in-law, or ex-mother-in-law, who I am very close with, is currently in the hospital. She's okay. She's going to be fine. She's going to be there for a few weeks, but she'll be okay. So yeah, that's why I was a little bit late today.
So hopefully, yeah, and hopefully she gets out of the hospital soon. I'm sitting here thinking, is there anything else we want to go through? We got like 5 minutes left. Well, coming up on 4 minutes now.
Well, let's see. John Connolly had put up a note: never call anything you don't know how to banish, and I can't stress that enough.
Well, and I don't know about anybody else. I was taught this way, and this is the way I teach. I don't teach anybody to call anything until after I've taught them how to banish.
Yep.
If you can't banish, I'm not going to teach you how to call.
One of the main things that I teach people first is harmonization. And I find that when you can harmonize, when you get your body completely in line, and you can make things let go of you if they reach out and grab you a lot easier than if you don't know how to get yourself in balance.
Yes, I agree with that, but I also think that's part of the banishing and grounding and centering aspect is to get yourself in line and grounded, centered.
Exactly.
In a spiritual and mental place where you can do that.
Instead of teaching them the banishing first, what I'll teach them first is the harmonizing. Then we'll go into banishing.
John's saying ceremonial magic can be fun. I'm sure it can be. I just haven't learned enough for it to be. I have an interest. I have a curiosity. I absolutely. I know many actually, ceremonial magicians around town and outside of town, and some of them have actually. One of them actually, Paths and Traditions Fair, which is Saturday, for anybody local. Several years ago, I was at a table next to some ceremonial magicians, friends of mine, and one of them looked over at me, and because he was talking about ceremonial magic versus witchcraft, and I said something about witchcraft being a lot less, a lot more off the cuff, and he looked at me and he says, "You're the most ceremonial witch I know," which is probably true. But I don't know a whole lot about it. I know a little bit that because I worked with somebody who was a witch and ceremonial magician for several years. In fact, we did a podcast together for 10 years. So I picked up a few things, but I don't know enough for it to be. Like I said, the last time I went to a Gnostic mass, I was bored out of my mind, and I'm afraid that's I don't want to study something I find boring. I want to study something that I find of interest. I certainly know the people to talk to if I decide to study it. I don't think I would have a problem having my application accepted. Yeah, Aileen's saying, yeah, no argument, John. It just isn't for me. Yeah, I'm with Aileen. Yep. It's just like, not really.
And John writes, it does require a willingness to do things in excruciating detail. And that is very true from what I have seen personally. It would be great for the OCD witch, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the IT witch who does, used to programming, who, every little bit matters. Absolutely.
But then Cassandra comes back and she says, just like anything, what resonates with one may not resonate with another. And that is absolutely true. So if ceremonial magic works for you, if you're into high ceremony, if you're into ceremony, if you're into all of that detail, then absolutely do it if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, then so be it.
And I absolutely
do what works for you.
Yeah, I absolutely do incorporate some ceremonial stuff into my ritual. Part of it is simply that's what's come down to me. I mean, let's face it, Gardner got a lot of his stuff from ceremonial magic. So the watchtowers are ceremonial. If you're calling quarters and you're using watchtowers of the east, south, west, and north, that's ceremonial. It comes straight from Crowley. casting circle, so mote it be. All of that is ceremonial in origin, and so a lot of what we do without realizing it is part of ceremonial magic. Unfortunately, because I haven't done the study and I haven't, I picked up bits here and there. I mean, the middle pillar ritual, I've done that in witchcraft as a form of meditation. I find it interesting. It's and useful actually.
Well, I mean, anytime that you go to like a public ritual, like belting, for instance, that is ceremonial magic right there.
Right, right. There's a lot of ceremony involved in your typical witch's ritual, and we share a lot of the symbology, including the pentagram. We may use it differently in some very similar ways, but we use it differently.
And then Eileen writes, I normally do what I call instant magic. I don't know how else to describe it, and that's perfectly fine if you're having a day where you just need to stop and do your thing, and then that's your ritual. Then if that works for you, then do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no wrong way to do this.
Because Sandra's piping up, she can't go into any more detail because it's like, yeah, that's a third degree secret.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that's the way Wiki used to be. Also, okay, I know the answer. I can't tell you because that's a third degree secret. But in some covens, that's exactly how it works. You're oath-bound. You can't talk about it, and that makes it difficult for the new person coming in who is looking for more information. Well, I want to know more. Well, I can't tell you. That's a secret, and so because I'm not oath-bound by anybody but my own tradition, which is my tradition. I can feel free to disclose as much as I want to or can. And one of the beautiful things, like I said, we did some research on this beforehand because there is so much information. But everybody out there has the same tools I do. My friend is Google. You have to be careful. I don't know how reliant you want to be on Wikipedia, but there are a lot of other sources out there that do tend to have some decent information. The whole thing about Sir Gawain and the White Knight and the Green Knight and the pentagram on his shield. I probably had read it somewhere before, but I was unaware of it. There's a lot of information out there that if you don't use it all the time, you tend to forget it. That whole thing with the invoking and banishing of pentagrams. When I was working with Winterhawk and Toby, and we were doing our thing with the warrior mage, we did invoking pentagrams and banishing pentagrams, and we were required to learn all 10 of them? Yeah, all 10 of them. And do them on command because that was how we were going to cast and disassemble our circles. It's a very ceremonial thing. But again, a big reason for doing a lot of this stuff is, especially in the ceremonial aspects, is to put your mind into that place where magic happens. The whole point of ritual is to remind your subconscious, which doesn't work with words, it works in images. Hey, we're doing magic. We need to do magic now. And so, you don't need all of the props and the window dressing and all of that stuff. You don't need any of it to do magic or to do ritual. What it does, its purpose, and the same thing goes for any other ritual, whether it's Christian, Hindu, or any other. It's to remind the subconscious, hey, it's time to worship. It's time to honor the gods. It's time to do magic. And so that's really what we're doing. The pentagram is simply a symbol of part of what we're doing.
Oh, Cassandra, I love what you just wrote. She says, I will say that Grandfather Black Elk would have said that the pentacle is the way of the star people. This is something we all have within us.
Yeah.
I've never heard it put that way, but that is amazing and powerful and beautiful. I'm going to steal that and use it because that is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree 100%. There is not as much difference between us, no matter what our belief system is, as most people want to believe. We may follow different deities. We may call them by different names. We may see them with different genders. There's a lot of differences, but those are really tiny little differences when you think about what it is we're doing and what spirituality is all about. It's all there are so many more similarities. I don't care what religious paths you're talking about. When you get right down to it, there are so many more similarities than differences to all of them. All right, so yeah, we're over our hour at this point. John's going to sign off. He's going to see us at the Paths and Traditions Fair. Yeah, I will be there. I've got a table. I expect that the people that are on chat, I'll probably see them all there. You coming up Saturday for Paths and Traditions Fair, Rebekah?
I honestly have no idea what my weekend looks like at this point.
Okay, so, Rebekah's down in the Springs, so we do this remotely. Which I'm assuming everybody knows because of the way that the image looks. But we both get to do this from the comfort of our own homes, which is one of the cool things about the technology. So if you come up, I hope you make it because it's a worthwhile deal. It's it's geared toward the beginner. It's geared toward the person who's looking for a teacher or for information. It's basically set up so that those of us who are teachers and have space to do this stuff can talk to anybody who comes up and explain what it is, who we are and what it is we do. And it gives everybody a chance to walk around and see what's available and actually talk to the people without having to feel weird about it, about what they believe and what they're looking for. And this is year 4. I guess this is year 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 years this is fourth or fifth year. I've been to all of them so far, and I always have a great time. I go and I set up my table and I sit back and let people come to me and ask me questions, and it's wonderful. So yeah, if you get the chance, come up. It's 10 to 4 at Jefferson Unitarian Church out west, out in Golden. Last thing I wanted to say is that if you're watching this and you found this of value, go ahead and hit that subscribe button that you'll find in that corner down there. Subscriptions help me a lot, and if you want more, you can go to witchcraftacademy.com. That's witchcraft-academy.com. I should probably put up a little lower third that has that URL on it. I will do that for next month. I'm seriously thinking about changing where we host this because YouTube is doing some weird things. I would still post it onto YouTube after we get done with the live show, but I'm thinking we may move the live show to Twitch or Beam. We'll see what happens. I need to do some thinking about that. It would be, I think, a little bit easier because I think I can then put everything onto the website. So you don't have to go to a different URL every month. You would just go to the same place every month and just chime in as you would. So anyway, with that, you got anything you wanted to say, Rebekah?
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We had a great time looking up information for you. We had a lot of fun putting this show together. And we hope to see you again next time.
All right, so we will catch you next month. It'll be after Imbolc. Maybe we'll talk about Imbolc next month.
Sounds like a fun topic.
All right, well, that works for me. Let's see here. There we go. I needed to get the right thing up here. And all right, so we will talk to you all next month.